Marcus wiped the grease from his calloused hands as he scrolled through rental apps on his cracked phone. The plumbing job had barely covered his rent, and another eviction notice sat crumpled on his kitchen table. At 28, the skilled handyman had built a reputation for fixing anything broken except his own financial situation. The advertisement appeared between furniture rentals and car services. Need convincing fake boyfriend for family dinner. $500 for one evening. Must be presentable and reliable. Marcus stared at the screen. $500 would solve his immediate problems and buy him time to find more steady work. His thumb hovered over the contact button. Meanwhile, across the city, Victoria Sterling adjusted her designer blazer in her penthouse office mirror. The tech mogul had built a billion-dollar empire before 30, but her traditional grandmother remained unimpressed. Another family dinner loomed, filled with questions about marriage and settling down. Her assistant had suggested the rental service as a joke, but Victoria found herself seriously considering it. She needed someone who wouldn't be intimidated by her wealth or family's scrutiny, someone genuine enough to fool her sharp-eyed relatives. When Marcus finally pressed send on his response message, he included a simple photo and brief description of his background. No lies, no embellishments, just an honest working man looking for unconventional income. Victoria reviewed dozens of responses that evening, dismissing the obvious actors and social climbers. Marcus's straightforward message stood out. His weathered hands and sincere expression suggested authenticity her family might actually believe. She typed back quickly before losing her nerve. "Can you meet tomorrow at Café Luna downtown? 2 o'clock. Neither anticipated how one evening's deception would unravel both their carefully constructed lives, revealing truths neither was prepared to face. Victoria arrived at Café Luna 15 minutes early, choosing a corner table with clear sightlines to the entrance. Her business training demanded strategic positioning, even for personal meetings. She ordered black coffee and checked her phone nervously. Marcus pushed through the cafe doors exactly at 2 o'clock, scanning the room uncertainly. He'd borrowed his brother's least wrinkled shirt and spent an hour researching basic etiquette online. The woman waving him over looked nothing like he'd expected. She was smaller in person, with sharp, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Her simple black dress probably cost more than his monthly rent, but she wore it without pretension. When she stood to greet him, Marcus noted her firm handshake and direct gaze. "Thank you for coming," Victoria said, gesturing for him to sit. "I'll be honest, this situation is unusual for me." Marcus settled into his chair, accepting the coffee she'd already ordered for him. "Unusual for me too, but $500 is $500. His bluntness surprised her. Most men in her circle spoke in careful euphemisms, dancing around money talk. Marcus's directness was refreshing, if jarring. "Tell me about yourself," Victoria said. "Beyond what you wrote in your message." Marcus described his work, the satisfaction of fixing broken things, the frustration of inconsistent income. He mentioned his aging truck, his small apartment, and his dream of starting his own repair business someday. No embellishments, no attempts to impress. Victoria found herself genuinely listening, something that rarely happened in her polished social circle. When she explained her family situation, the pressure, the expectations, the exhausting performance of success, Marcus nodded with understanding. "So we both need something we can't get, honestly," he observed. "Apparently so," Victoria replied, surprised by his insight. They spent another hour discussing logistics, boundaries, and expectations. The arrangement felt less transactional than either had anticipated, built on mutual respect rather than desperation. 3 days before the family dinner, Victoria insisted on a preparation session. She'd arranged to meet Marcus at her penthouse, claiming they needed to establish believable relationship details and chemistry. Marcus had never entered a building requiring doorman approval. The elevator ride to the 40th floor left his ears popping and his confidence shaken. Victoria's home was a museum of modern minimalism, all clean lines, expensive art, and floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the city below. "Impressive," Marcus said, genuinely awed despite his discomfort. "It's home," Victoria replied. Though her tone suggested ambivalence, she led him to her living room, where she'd prepared notes and background information. They spent hours crafting their fictional relationship history. They'd met at a charity event where Marcus was volunteering maintenance work. Their first date was dinner at a small Italian restaurant. Victoria appreciated his honesty. Marcus admired her intelligence and determination. The lies came easier than expected, built on kernels of truth neither fully acknowledged. "My family will test you," Victoria warned. "My grandmother especially. She has a gift for detecting insincerity." Marcus practiced answering questions about his intentions, his background, and his feelings for Victoria. The rehearsed affection felt strange but not entirely uncomfortable. As evening approached, Victoria ordered dinner from an expensive restaurant. They ate together on her balcony, the city sparkling below. The setting was romantic despite their business arrangement. "Why haven't you found someone real?" Marcus asked during a lull in conversation. Victoria's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Too busy building an empire, I suppose, and most men are either intimidated by my success or only interested in my money." "And you? Why are you single?" Marcus considered his answer carefully. "Haven't met anyone who understands that work isn't just about money for me, it's about purpose." The honesty surprised them both, creating an unexpected moment of connection. Victoria's grandmother lived in an imposing Victorian mansion that had housed 3 generations of sterling family wealth. Marcus adjusted his borrowed tie as their car pulled into the circular driveway, surrounded by luxury vehicles that cost more than his annual income. "Remember, we've been dating for 6 months, Victoria whispered as they approached the front door. "You're nervous because you care about making a good impression." The second part wasn't acting. Eleanor Sterling opened the door herself, defying Marcus's expectations of household staff. The 78-year-old matriarch stood barely 5 feet tall, but commanded immediate attention. Her silver hair was perfectly styled, her pearls authentic, and her eyes sharp as surgical instruments. "So you're the young man who's captured my granddaughter's attention," Eleanor said, her voice carrying decades of authority. "Yes, ma'am. Marcus Chen." He extended his hand, grateful when she shook it firmly. "Chen, that's not typically Irish. Chinese-American, actually, 3rd generation." Eleanor's eyebrows rose slightly. Victoria didn't mention that detail. Marcus felt Victoria tense beside him, but Eleanor's expression remained neutral. They were led into a formal dining room where other family members waited. Victoria's parents, 2 aunts, and a cousin who worked in the family's investment firm. The questions began immediately. Marcus's background, his education, his career prospects, his intentions regarding Victoria. He answered honestly about his work, his values, and his modest ambitions. When asked about his feelings for Victoria, he found himself speaking with unexpected sincerity about her intelligence, her determination, and her hidden vulnerability. Victoria watched him navigate her family's scrutiny with growing admiration. He didn't try to be someone else or apologize for who he was. When her cousin made a condescending comment about manual labor, Marcus responded with dignity and pride in his craftsmanship. During dessert, Eleanor fixed Marcus with her penetrating stare. "What do you want from my granddaughter, young man?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus met Eleanor's gaze steadily, aware that everyone at the table was watching. The rehearsed answers Victoria had prepared seemed inadequate for the weight of the moment. "I want her to be happy," he said finally. "She works so hard to meet everyone else's expectations that I'm not sure she knows what makes her happy anymore." The silence stretched uncomfortably. Victoria stared at her dessert plate, surprised by the accuracy of his observation. Eleanor's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "And what makes you think you understand my granddaughter better than her own family?" "I don't presume to understand her completely," Marcus replied. "But I recognize someone carrying a heavy load. I've done it most of my life." Victoria's mother shifted uncomfortably. Her father cleared his throat, but Eleanor leaned forward, intrigued. "Tell me about this heavy load, Marcus." Marcus spoke about growing up as the oldest of 4 children after their father died, the responsibility of helping support his family while finishing high school, then working multiple jobs to keep his siblings in college. The weight of being depended upon, of never having the luxury of thinking only about himself. "Victoria carries the weight of this family's legacy," he continued. "Every decision she makes affects not just her, but generations of sterling history. That's a different kind of pressure, but it's still pressure." Victoria looked up, surprised by his insight into her daily reality. The conversation shifted after that, becoming less interrogation and more genuine discussion. Marcus found himself enjoying Eleanor's sharp wit and extensive knowledge of history. Victoria's parents warmed to his respectful attention and thoughtful questions about their own experiences. As the evening wound down, Eleanor walked them to the door privately. "He's not what I expected," she told Victoria quietly, "but perhaps that's exactly what you need." In the car afterward, Victoria and Marcus sat in contemplative silence. "Thank you," she said eventually, "for understanding what I couldn't explain." Marcus nodded, disturbed by how real their fake relationship had felt during dinner. A week after the family dinner, Victoria found herself thinking about Marcus more than their business arrangement warranted. She'd paid him the agreed-upon $500 plus a bonus for his exceptional performance, but something felt unfinished between them. When her phone rang at midnight, she almost ignored it. Unknown numbers usually meant business emergencies or social obligations, but something prompted her to answer. "Victoria, it's Marcus. I'm sorry to call so late, but I need help." His voice carried a strain she'd never heard before. "What's wrong?" "My truck broke down on the highway. AAA can't come until morning, and I have 3 jobs tomorrow starting at 6. "I know this is asking a lot, but where are you?" 20 minutes later, Victoria pulled her Tesla onto the highway shoulder behind Marcus's battered pickup truck. She'd never seen him look defeated before. He stood beside his vehicle with a toolbox, grease staining his borrowed dinner shirt. "I think it's the transmission," he explained. "Been making noise for weeks, but I kept hoping it would hold out until I could afford repairs." Victoria called her personal mechanic, arranging for emergency roadside service despite the hour. Marcus protested the expense, but she insisted it was practical. She needed him available for potential future family events. While they waited for the tow truck, they talked in her climate-controlled car. Marcus explained his financial juggling act. Every dollar allocated, no room for unexpected expenses. Victoria shared her own pressures, board meetings, investor expectations, the constant scrutiny of business media. "At least when your truck breaks down, you can fix it yourself," she observed. "When your life breaks down, money can usually fix it," Marcus countered. "You'd be surprised how many things money can't fix." The tow truck arrived as dawn approached. Victoria insisted on driving Marcus home, navigating unfamiliar neighborhoods to reach his modest apartment complex. "Thank you," Marcus said as they parked, "for everything tonight. Thank you for calling me instead of someone else." The admission surprised them both. Marcus had instinctively reached out to her in crisis, and Victoria had responded without hesitation. Their fake relationship was developing real elements neither had anticipated. Victoria's involvement in Marcus's truck crisis led to an unexpected friendship. She found herself texting him about mundane daily experiences, a difficult board meeting, a frustrating conference call, a surprisingly good lunch at a new restaurant. He responded with similar observations about his work, clients, and small victories. Their conversations revealed compatible humor and values despite their vastly different circumstances. Victoria appreciated Marcus's straightforward perspective on her business challenges. Marcus valued her intelligent analysis of his career dilemmas. 2 weeks after the highway incident, Victoria made an impulsive decision. She called Marcus while he was finishing a kitchen renovation job. "Are you free for dinner tonight?" she asked. "Not family-related, just dinner." Marcus hesitated. "Is this part of our arrangement?" "No. This is me asking you to dinner because I'd like your company." The distinction mattered to both of them. They met at the small Italian restaurant from their fictional first date story. The irony wasn't lost on either of them as they ordered wine and actually got to know each other without performance pressure. Marcus talked about his dream of opening his own contracting business, his love of restoring old things to functionality. Victoria described her early struggles building her company, the satisfaction of creating something meaningful from nothing. "You know what's strange?" Victoria said over dessert. "I feel more relaxed with you than I have in years." "Strange how?" "I don't have to perform success with you. You already know I'm successful. I can just be tired or frustrated or uncertain without it reflecting on my competence." Marcus understood. "I don't have to prove I'm worthy of your time. You already chose to spend it with me." The evening felt like a real first date. Nervous energy, genuine curiosity, and the pleasant anticipation of possibility. When Marcus walked Victoria to her car, both were reluctant for the night to end. "This complicates things," Victoria said. "Yeah," Marcus agreed. "It does." But neither suggested stopping. Marcus's truck repair cost more than expected, creating a cascade of financial problems. 2 clients cancelled jobs when he couldn't meet scheduled appointments. His landlord threatened eviction proceedings. The stability he'd briefly achieved was crumbling. Victoria discovered the extent of his troubles when she called about dinner plans and found him stressed and distracted. "Let me help," she offered. "I can loan you whatever you need." "I can't take your money, Victoria. It changes everything between us." "Everything's already changed." Marcus couldn't deny that truth. Their relationship had evolved far beyond their original arrangement, but accepting financial help from Victoria felt like crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. "What if it wasn't a loan?" Victoria suggested. "What if it was an investment?" She proposed backing his contracting business in exchange for a percentage of profits. Marcus would maintain control and independence while gaining the capital necessary for growth and stability. "You don't know anything about construction or contracting," Marcus protested. "I know about business. I know about recognizing good investments. And I know you." The offer was generous beyond Marcus's most optimistic dreams. With proper funding, he could purchase professional equipment, hire help, and bid on larger projects. Victoria's backing would provide credibility with suppliers and clients. But accepting meant their relationship would become permanently intertwined with business obligations. The simplicity of their connection would be complicated by contracts, profit sharing, and professional accountability. Marcus asked for time to consider the proposal. Victoria agreed, though she worried his pride might prevent him from accepting help he desperately needed. That night, Marcus called his younger brother David for advice. "She's offering to invest in your dream," David pointed out, "and she knows you well enough to trust your abilities. Maybe the question isn't whether you can afford to accept, but whether you can afford not to." The conversation forced Marcus to examine his true feelings about Victoria and their increasingly complex relationship. Marcus spent 3 sleepless nights weighing Victoria's investment proposal. His rational mind recognized the opportunity: startup capital, business mentorship, and a chance to build something lasting. His emotional instincts warned of complications that might destroy what they'd built together. On Thursday morning, he made his decision. Victoria was in a quarterly board meeting when Marcus called. She stepped out to take his call, noting the nervous energy in his voice. "I want to accept your offer," he said, "but with conditions." "I'm listening." "Full business partnership, not just investment. You get 40% ownership and equal say in major decisions. If we're doing this, we're doing it right." Victoria's business experience made her cautious about partnerships with unequal expertise. But something about Marcus's proposal felt right. He was offering true collaboration rather than simply accepting her money. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "Running a business together will test our relationship in ways we can't anticipate." "I'm sure. Are you?" Victoria surprised herself by answering immediately. "Yes." They arranged to meet that evening to discuss details and draw up preliminary agreements. Victoria's lawyers would formalize the partnership, but the essential trust had to exist between them personally. Marcus spent the afternoon researching business partnerships, trying to understand the implications of what he'd proposed. Victoria rearranged her schedule to focus on transition planning and resource allocation. When they met at Victoria's penthouse that evening, both carried legal pads covered with notes and questions. The conversation was thorough and occasionally tense as they worked through operational details, financial responsibilities, and decision-making protocols. "This could destroy what we have," Victoria said during a break in negotiations. "Or it could build something stronger," Marcus replied. "Something real." By midnight, they'd outlined the framework of Sterling Chen contracting services. Marcus would handle operations, client relations, and project management. Victoria would manage finances, business development, and strategic planning. Their handshake felt more significant than any contract they'd sign later. "Partners," Victoria said. "Partners," Marcus agreed. Neither mentioned how the word carried personal as well as professional implications. Sterling Chen Contracting Services officially launched 6 weeks later. Their first major project came through Victoria's network. A tech startup needed to renovate their new headquarters quickly and professionally. Marcus walked through the empty office space with mixed emotions. The project represented everything he'd dreamed of professionally, but working in Victoria's world highlighted their different backgrounds in ways he hadn't fully considered. The client meeting included Victoria's presence, which immediately changed the dynamic. The startup's CEO clearly assumed she was the decision-maker, directing technical questions to her instead of Marcus. "Actually, Marcus is our operational lead," Victoria corrected smoothly. "He'll be managing this project directly." Marcus appreciated her support, but noticed how her reputation opened doors his expertise alone couldn't access. The privilege made him uncomfortable, even as he recognized its practical benefits. Construction began the following Monday. Marcus hired 2 experienced workers and rented professional equipment. For the first time in his career, he had adequate resources and realistic timelines. Victoria visited the job site daily, ostensibly to monitor progress, but actually to learn about construction processes. Her questions were intelligent and her interest genuine, but her presence sometimes made Marcus's crew nervous. "They think you're checking up on me," Marcus told her after she'd left one afternoon. "Are they wrong?" The honest question stung. "Is that what you're doing?" Victoria considered her answer carefully. "I'm trying to understand your work so I can support it better. But I'm also protecting my investment." The distinction mattered, though Marcus wasn't sure which motivation dominated her behavior. Midway through the project, they encountered their first serious disagreement. The client requested additional work that would extend the timeline and increase costs. Marcus wanted to accommodate the changes to build goodwill. Victoria preferred to stick to the original contract and charge appropriately for modifications. Their debate lasted hours and revealed fundamental differences in business philosophy. Marcus valued relationships and customer satisfaction. Victoria prioritized profitability and clear boundaries. Eventually, they reached a compromise that satisfied both perspectives, but the disagreement highlighted challenges ahead. As Sterling Chen Contracting completed more projects, the partnership's dynamics became increasingly complex. Marcus's reputation for quality work attracted new clients, while Victoria's business acumen secured profitable contracts and efficient operations. Professionally, they complemented each other perfectly. Personally, the constant collaboration was straining their relationship. The tension came to a head during a particularly challenging renovation project. The client changed specifications multiple times, demanding updates that required additional materials and labor. Marcus wanted to maintain goodwill by absorbing some costs. Victoria insisted on charging for every change. Their argument in the construction trailer was overheard by workers and the client, creating embarrassment for both partners. "We can't disagree publicly," Victoria said afterward. "It undermines confidence in our partnership." "We can't pretend to agree when we don't," Marcus replied. "That's not honest." They established protocols for handling future disagreements privately, but the incident revealed deeper issues. Marcus sometimes felt Victoria didn't trust his judgment. Victoria occasionally felt Marcus was too accommodating with difficult clients. The professional stress began affecting their personal relationship. Dinners became business meetings. Casual conversations turned into project discussions. The ease they'd once shared was replaced by careful politeness. Marcus's brother David noticed the change during a family barbecue, where Victoria was notably absent. "Business partnerships with romantic interests rarely work," David observed. "Too many conflicts of interest." "We're not romantic interests," Marcus said automatically. "Really? Because you've been miserable since you started working together." The observation forced Marcus to examine what he'd lost in gaining his dream business opportunity. Success had come at the cost of the relationship that had inspired it. Victoria was facing similar realizations. Her assistant commented on her increased stress levels and shortened temper. Board meetings that once energized her now felt like obligations to endure. Maybe mixing business with personal relationships wasn't wise, her assistant suggested diplomatically. Victoria couldn't disagree, but she also couldn't imagine unwinding their partnership without losing Marcus entirely. The crisis came during their biggest project yet, renovating a historic building for a prestigious law firm. The client was demanding, the timeline aggressive, and the technical challenges numerous. Marcus and Victoria were working 16-hour days and seeing each other only in professional contexts. Midway through construction, Marcus discovered serious structural issues that would require expensive repairs and extend the timeline by weeks. The client threatened to cancel the contract and demand penalty payments that would bankrupt their new company. Victoria's immediate response was to explore legal options and liability limitations. Marcus wanted to focus on solving the structural problems regardless of cost. Their disagreement escalated into their worst fight yet. "You're thinking like a contractor, not a business owner," Victoria accused. "We have obligations to our company, not just this client." "And you're thinking like a financier who's never held a hammer," Marcus shot back. "Some things matter more than profit margins." The harsh words cut deeply. Victoria saw her business expertise dismissed. Marcus felt his professional values questioned. They didn't speak for 3 days while emergency repairs continued. Marcus worked alongside his crew, pouring his frustration into physical labor. Victoria managed client relations and financial damage control from her office. The separation clarified how much they'd come to depend on each other, both professionally and personally. Marcus found himself wanting to share small victories and concerns with Victoria. Victoria caught herself drafting texts to Marcus about unrelated topics before remembering their estrangement. On Thursday evening, Marcus appeared at Victoria's penthouse unannounced. "We need to talk," he said when she opened the door. Victoria led him to her living room, noting his exhaustion and paint-stained clothes. "The structural work is finished," Marcus reported. "We'll meet the revised deadline and stay within the adjusted budget." "Good. The client has agreed to the modifications." They sat in awkward silence, business matters resolved, but personal issues unaddressed. "This isn't working," Victoria said finally. "No," Marcus agreed. "It's not." Marcus and Victoria spent the following week evaluating their options. They could dissolve the partnership and return to their separate lives. They could continue working together while maintaining emotional distance. Or they could find a way to separate business from personal relationships. The third option seemed impossible after months of professional integration. Victoria consulted her lawyers about partnership dissolution procedures. Marcus researched options for buying out her share or selling his own interest. Neither conversation brought satisfaction or clarity. Meanwhile, their current projects continued, requiring daily collaboration. They maintained professional courtesy while avoiding personal topics, but the artificial distance felt more exhausting than their previous conflicts. The law firm renovation was completed successfully despite the structural complications. The client praised their problem-solving abilities and offered referrals to similar prestigious projects. Sterling Chen Contracting's reputation was established and growing. Professionally, they'd achieved everything Marcus had dreamed of when he first responded to Victoria's advertisement. Personally, they'd lost the connection that had made success meaningful. The irony wasn't lost on either partner. Victoria made the first move toward resolution. She invited Marcus to dinner, not a business meeting, but a personal conversation about their future. They met at the same Italian restaurant where they'd first moved beyond their fake relationship arrangement. The setting's significance wasn't coincidental. "I've been thinking about what we want," Victoria began. "From the business, from each other, from life." Marcus listened as she described her fears about losing him entirely if they continued their current path. The business partnership had given them professional success but cost them personal happiness. "What if we separated the business from us?" Victoria proposed. "You buy out my share and run Sterling Chen as your own company. I provide consulting services when needed, but we're not daily partners." The proposal was generous and practical. Marcus would gain full control of his dream business. Victoria would retain some involvement without the constant stress of operational management. But something about the solution felt wrong to Marcus. "What if there's another option?" he suggested. Marcus looked across the restaurant table at Victoria, seeing not his business partner or the woman who had hired him months ago, but someone he'd grown to love despite all their complications. "What if we stop pretending this is just about business?" he said. "What if we admit that we're more than partners and figure out how to make that work?" Victoria's carefully maintained composure cracked slightly. "Marcus, I know it's complicated. I know our backgrounds are different and our worlds don't naturally fit together, but I also know that I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. Business partnerships between couples have terrible success rates," Victoria said quietly. "So do fake relationships that turn real," Marcus replied. "But here we are." Victoria smiled despite her concerns. "Here we are." Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. "I don't want to dissolve our partnership. I want to figure out how to make it work, all of it. The business, the relationship, the differences that make us stronger together. It won't be easy. Nothing worth having ever is." Victoria felt the last of her careful defenses crumble. "What exactly are you proposing, Marcus Chen?" "I'm proposing we stop renting a relationship and start building a real one. I'm proposing we trust each other enough to be honest about what we want, professionally and personally." "And what do you want?" Marcus took a deep breath. "I want to build a business with you. I want to build a life with you. I want to see where this goes when we stop being afraid of complications." Victoria squeezed his hand. "I want that too." They talked until the restaurant closed, establishing new boundaries between business decisions and personal relationships. They would continue as equal partners in Sterling Chen Contracting, but they would also pursue their romantic relationship with the same commitment and honesty. 6 months later, Victoria's grandmother Eleanor attended the grand opening of Sterling Chen's new headquarters, a renovated warehouse that Marcus had restored to showcase both modern efficiency and historical character. "So the fake boyfriend became the real deal," Eleanor observed, watching Marcus and Victoria work the room together. "The best investments often do," Victoria replied, smiling as Marcus caught her eye across the crowded space. "Thank you for listening to our story about Marcus and Victoria, two people who discovered that sometimes the most unexpected connections become the most meaningful ones. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Tell us where you're listening from and what you thought about their journey from a fake relationship to a real partnership in both business and life. Your support means everything to storytellers like us, and we're grateful for every listener who takes this journey with our characters.